maneco64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So it's Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. Decided to do a live stream. I want to talk about the Federal Reserve and interest rates and what it could mean for the overall economy, for the markets, and what happens when the Fed is on a rate hiking cycle, like it has been for almost 3 years now. They started raising rates in December 2015. So they come Christmas this year, it's going to be 3 years since they've started raising rates and also doing quantitative tightening. Hi, John Hill. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I mean, interest rates have been going up since 2015, at least the Fed funds rate. Long-term interest rates, the 10-year yield has been going up since July 2016. Today, as I speak here, the 10-year yield is back above 3%. It's at 304. The high for this year is around 313. So it's very close to that level. Hi, IK from Dublin. We got a few more people coming. Stephen 1000, how can I buy EOS? Well, on exchanges, Binance, Bitfinex are the ones that I would probably recommend. I personally have my EOS from buying in the ICO, but you can trade, buy it from Binance or Bitfinex. Those are the exchanges where you can buy EOS. Pat from Indiana. Hi, Pat. Hi, Tony. Button Banger. Good day, Button. So Billy and I are here today on our own. My wife has gone out and my daughter is back to university. So Bo Radley from Limerick in Ireland. Hi, Bo. Will they repossess 100% of all bank deposits? Oh, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. That's called a bail-in. SROX40, what is your opinion about Tether being a scam? To be honest, I haven't even looked at Tether. I've never owned it, so I couldn't tell you. Jefferson Humber, you're not late. I've only been here for less than 3 minutes. Patty Craig, Mario, please advise your followers to buy their silver coins in Europe, as they won't pay VAT at 20% in the UK. At Schiphol en route to Dublin, Irish Knights. Oh, you're going to Dublin. Okay, nice. Open session today, or are we talking about altcoins? No, I want to. It's open. You can ask any questions you want. It's Q&A. I want to talk a little bit about the Fed and interest rates. I will do a little that a little later when we've got more people here. We've only got 43. Usually we get just under 200. So I'll wait a little longer. So I'll start taking questions from people. Pat, Mario, when the 10-year Treasury hits 3% and stays there for more than a day, do you think it will have any significance at all? Well, earlier in the year when yields started going up, the stock market was under pressure. Also, a few months ago, when the 10-year went above 3%, the stock market got under pressure, went up to 313. Yeah, we need to be to see, how can I say, this 3% needs to be up there for a while. If it goes back tomorrow, then probably that's not a problem. This is the first time in 4 months we've gone back above 3%. We've been just hovering between 2.87, which is 2 7/8, and 3% for 4 months. So this is a significant breakout. Will it affect things? Maybe, maybe not. I was reading an article here on Zero Hedge, and I'll put the link on the chat here. and it's a guy called Charlie McElligott. He's talking about how the markets are on the cusp of a tightening tantrum that a lot of times you get markets going down once the Fed interest rate cycle ends, the hiking cycle, and after that you actually see the longer end going up. You know, the yields, actually the curve steepening, and the stock market correcting down. He seems to think we're very close to the end of the tightening cycle. We're seeing other short-term interest rates go up, and it could affect businesses. And I've spoken about this, how credit is so tight. You know, the economy is so leveraged with credit that when companies can't finance their credit, the whole economy implodes. Yeah, Jefferson. Yeah, Russia did liquidate a lot of their holdings, and it was at the time when the interest rates are going up and then going up towards 3%. I remember that. Right now, I don't think they have many treasuries left, so it's probably something else and not the Russians. Bo Radley, what will happen to the pound and euro after Brexit? Well, I mean, as a whole, fiat currencies, in my opinion, or it's not even my opinion, it's a historical fact, they always go to zero. So, uh, you know, as a matter of the rate between the euro and sterling, there maybe the pound will rebound a little bit because it's more of a, sell the rumor, buy the fact. But and over the long term, I think they'll continue to go lower. Both of them against each other, they will fluctuate. And I would probably think that the pound would become weaker than the euro on a relative term basis. Stephen, 1,000 EOS. Can you suggest a wallet? Yeah, I use one called Simple OS. Simple OS. That's on eosrio.io, I think. Just Google Simple. Yeah, SIMPL EOS. I would also recommend you getting a bridge like MetaMask, but for EOS, it's called Scatter, SCATTER. Afternoon, Lix59. Dean Reynolds, would it be possible to buy real estate with gold and silver when the dollar collapses? Of course. Gold and silver have been the most marketable commodity for for thousands of years. So you can buy anything with gold and silver, especially if there's a crisis. You can buy at any time at the moment. You just have to exchange it for the fiat. Paul Aber, hi Mario, I believe that on average, no more than 2% of the total amount of gold supply is mined per year. Do you know how much silver is mined on average per year compared to the total? I would have to say, so gold is 2%. Yeah, and I guess gold is also matched, the mining is matched population growth. And that's why, gold is held its value well. For silver, I would say it's probably, I believe that 2%. For silver, I think it would be, I can't tell you that number, but I would guess that it would be a little less because there's a lot fewer silver mines out there that mining companies that focus just on silver. A lot of times silver is a byproduct of copper, but I can't tell you that. I recommend silver-investor.com. Yeah, John, is it John Morgan, I think his name is. He's a real silver guru. You might find that information there. Kevin Johnson, how much control does the IMF have? Well, the IMF, I think the gold they hold is really, you know, a product of the ownership of the members of the IMF. I'm not sure if they hold that much gold for the IMF itself, but the IMF is basically the foreign arm of the U.S. Treasury. The U.S. Treasury has, I think, 17% of the votes, and you need 17% of the votes to veto anything. So the United States is the only country that can veto anything at the IMF. So it's just the foreign arm of the U.S. Treasury. I don't think they have that much gold, and I think a lot of the gold there is, it's just gold that they have access to from their members, especially the big ones like the U.S. And do we really think the U.S. has 8,000 tons of gold? I don't think so. So let's see, Pat. Looking at the chart, I see the need for a double bottom in gold before we can say we have bottom. What do you think? You don't necessarily need a double bottom, but I personally think that the bottom on August 15th was a bottom. It was kind of a capitulation bottom. I could be wrong, but you don't necessarily need a double bottom to have a bottom. Where's gold right now? It's 1198.50, so still not doing much. So that's a question from Kevin. Or do you mean the physical gold? Well, I'm not talking about gold coins today. I'm talking more about interest rates, the Fed, and one thing I was looking when the Fed has a rate raising cycle, it usually lasts 3 to 4 years, not that much longer. And looking here at a chart, back in the late 80s, it started raising, rates started going up from around 1978, and they topped at 20% in 1981. And there was a recession from 1981 to 1982. And then again, the Fed started raising rates around 1986 to 1989, 3 years. And then you had the savings and loan crisis, and you had the 1990-91 recession. And then the Fed started raising rates like in 1994, and it didn't take too long, and you had the Mexican crisis in 1995. And then again, the Fed started raising rates in 1999, and lo and behold, you had the 2001 recession and the dot-com bust. So, and the last rate hiking cycle you had from the Fed, they started raising rates towards the beginning of 2005. They stopped by the end of 2006, beginning of 2007, so about 2 years. And then lo and behold, we had the subprime crisis started in 07, and we all know what happened in 08, 09, Great Recession. So all I'm saying is that now the Fed has been raising rates since December 2015. It's going to be 3 years now in December that they've been raising rates. Not only that, prior to that, they kept rates for 6 years, stuck at zero, which was unprecedented. And they bought like about over 3.5 trillion in QE. So yeah, if we are going to have a crisis, it's going to be ugly, I think. I don't think we'll ever seen, there hasn't been, how can I say, precedent for this. Even, and I'm starting to see also a lot of mainstream publications. I've seen, we know that Sky News had a story about a next crisis. I saw someone in the Telegraph talking yesterday. We saw Gordon Brown in The Guardian. Maybe it's just because it's the 10th anniversary, but a lot of the people in the mainstream, they're talking like we're talking, that this is not normal and that nothing's been done to fix anything. So that's what I wanted to point out. I think the Fed, this article that I read today on Zero Hedge, the Fed's expected to hike again next week, and then there's expected to hike again in December, and then maybe one more time, even two next year. But the market apparently is only discounting another 2 rate hikes for the Fed. So I think we're getting very close to some kind of event. And since 1980, since really the end of Bretton Woods, there's never been a rate rising cycle by the Fed that has not created an accident or a recession. So it's very likely we're very close to one. I know it's been frustrating these last few years, but I think it's. I was thinking, Lord Humongous, thank you for the super chat. You're not late. I've only been here for 15 minutes, so we've got plenty of time, Lord Humongous. Michal Petrovsky, hi Mario. What would happen if Fed stopped manipulating rates? Well, rates would probably go to the moon. The last time the Fed did that was under Paul Volcker. He let rates go wherever they may, the market take them, and they went to 20%. That was in 1980, 1981. So it will go into double digits, but I don't think they'll do that, to be honest. But you never know. What else? About interest rates. Well, yeah, one of the reasons I'm talking about interest rates today is that, well, first of all, the rate rising cycle is getting long in the tooth, and that today we're seeing the 10-year yield trade back above 3%. We're at 3.04. It's the first time in 4 months it's been at that level. T. Hambone, hi Mario. Thoughts on Chinese pandas if the yuan will take over the world reserve currency? Would investing in yuan-backed precious metals be beneficial? I don't think it matters really which gold coin you invest in. I have some pandas. I have sovereigns. I have double eagles, maple leafs. It doesn't really matter. I don't think it will make any difference to the premium. Peter Oitzinger, the really big crisis will be 2027, 2028. After this next recession, they'll kick the can down the road for another 10 years. Well, maybe, I don't know. One thing I was thinking, though, I was doing a bit of, I'm trading some of these tokens from the EOS ecosystem, so to speak, and on some decentralized exchanges. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's quite illiquid, these exchanges, and I have access to my tokens because they're decentralized. And so I can bid on one exchange and offer on the other, so to speak, sometimes even arbitrage, and I make EOS. But one of the exchanges today, it shut down for hours, and the chart of this token was like this for hours, and then they reopened it, and the market went like that and then came down. It went crazy. So all I'm saying is I think that for the last 10 years, I know the markets and exchanges are still open, but I think they've shut down the free market, and what we have today is very artificial, and we got to be prepared for some huge moves. So that's why we need to be careful not to have, I think, too much exposure to the system. And that's why I always recommend precious metals and even cryptocurrencies, because they're outside the system, but you may not be able to cash them in. If the system goes down, you still have them in your wallet, but physical gold and silver, you can always, they're physical, so you can actually use them in a crisis. So that's what I wanted to talk about as well. The fact that I think markets are so, I guess you could say, manipulated, that they're artificial, and that when they reopen, when because the central banks and governments, they can't keep, how can I say, manipulating or artificially setting prices forever. Excuse me, because if they could, the whole world would be, everyone would be very prosperous. They could do this kind of stuff, not just for the 1%, but for everyone. But it doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as a free lunch. It's the natural law of economics. SDAC, I have EOS airdrops I want to trade. Yeah, there's two exchanges. There's actually three. One is Chains, CHINCE. The other one is Nudex, NEUDEX, and the other one is DEXEOS. So those three exchanges, a lot of these airdrop tokens are being quoted there. They're not worth much at the moment, though. I'm personally just keeping them because I didn't pay for them, really. Hi, Daryl. News for All, married. Do you know Karen Hudders? Yeah, I've listened to her a few years ago. I'm not too sure about her. Yeah, she claims to have worked for the World Bank, I think, but she talks about a new monetary system. Yeah, I mean, I have listened to her, but I haven't listened to her that much in the last few years. Ohio Chemtrail, hi Ohio Chemtrail. Manny Santiago Mero, given that capitalist system requires constant expansion in a world that has finite resources, how do you see this all ending? What will come in its wake? Well, I think the fiat money system makes the capitalism even more, makes it unsustainable because we're creating a lot of, how can I say, economic activity based on funny money. Yeah, and I think sound money or market-based money, which you have to work for, like gold and silver or other, you know, currencies or money we've had in the past, that's more sustainable. Of course, capital, I don't think it does need to expand, but you do have cycles. I think the expansion right now is too unsustainable. So yeah, it will, but that's the way things work. During the Roman Empire, I think Rome had a million, the population of Rome was a million. And by the time the Renaissance started, 300, 400 years ago, I think the population of Rome was 35,000. Now it's in the millions again. So yeah, it's all cycles. And I think, am I saying we're like Rome now at the top and we're going to collapse? No, but all I'm saying is I think demographics, world population, debt is all too high at the moment. And if you look at the charts, you would think that in between 07 and 09, when we had the huge crisis, that we had a huge correction, that debt was how can I say, destroyed, the system corrected. But no, it's just a little blip like that, and it's kept going up. So we haven't really had a huge washout of the system. And I think we will. When is difficult to say, but it will be really something that we haven't seen in hundreds and hundreds of years, in my opinion. Force majeure. Force majeure. Are there any good brokers in the UK that sell Canadian shares like Aurora? I guess you can check Charles Stanley. I think they're good. And also Hargreaves Lansdowne, or even IG.com. They have a brokerage office. News for all. Rumors are that the USA is going back to a gold-backed dollar. If all countries do that, we do not need the fiat system anymore. That would be great news for all. I'd like to see that. All right. Button Banger, were people ever paid in gold? Yeah, of course they were. Up until 1914 in Europe and the US, uh, we had a gold standard. People were paid in gold, people were paid in silver coins. Up until 1964 in the US, they're paid in silver coins. Up until in Western Europe, up until 1968, silver circulated. Of course, people were paid in gold, yeah. Peter, why do miners sell their silver for the price of paper silver? Well, because they need to have cash flow. And unfortunately, the price of physical silver at the moment is determined by the paper price of silver. That's the only reason why. It's like, if you grow bananas, you can't eat all the bananas yourself. You got to sell them for fiat dollars, unfortunately. KVJ, do we need to prep with food for the disruption, the next great correction? It's not my specialty, prepping, but probably doesn't hurt. Probably doesn't hurt. Being next to near the countryside doesn't hurt either. Being in a big city, in an apartment or flat, and having not much room, not much storage space is not great, I would say. Evening, Ben. Nice to see you. Aaron Levy, I'm popping in to check you out, getting ready for work now. How much longer do you think crypto bear market will last? Well, yeah, it's lasted quite a long time. In the beginning of the year, I thought it would last long, mainly because the correction was so big. So it could last another. Some people think it's going to go up before the end of the year, but it could surprise people and last another, until January, December, January. And my concern, no, I'm just being patient. I've told people what I'm doing. I'm doing a little bit of trading between two exchanges with these new EOS tokens. They're like airdrops. They're not really EOS, but they're ecosystem. And I'm trying to make EOS doing that. And it's been going quite well, just adding on to it. But yeah, it could last another 3-4 months, before we start going up again. But if you're patient enough, I think, and you can sit through it, once it starts going up, you're set, in my opinion. Michael Petrowski, is it better for economy? So is it better for economy when they manipulate interest rates? Of course it isn't. No, we don't want any kind of manipulation of the economy or the free market is bad. Be it interest rates, be it prices, be it stock prices. In the early 70s, Richard Nixon, when they had a lot of inflation, they put price caps, price controls. And what happens when you use price controls? While the people who supply the goods, they can't make a profit, so they stop providing the goods. So what does that make? There's no more goods out there, and the prices go up even more. No, manipulation has never been a good thing. It might help things in the short term, but in the long term, it always creates problems. Oliver Bristol, the Roman legions demanded paying gold in the late empire since the silver denarius had been debased so heavily. Yeah, they really flipped those coins. They really debased the silver denarius, and you can see the debasement of the Roman coinage. It matched pretty much the decline of the Roman Empire. And once you can't pay your soldiers, that's it. Tesla 3, when gold gives a signal to buy, would you recommend ETF like GLD? Short answer, no. No, I recommend physical gold, no ETFs. Don't trust ETFs, they're issued by the bankers. Yeah, Samantha Jane, I bought EOS at 90 cents, Doge for 0.0087, hold for 2 years, 100 times. Yeah, you need to be patient with these things. And it's not even guaranteed that it's going to do that again, but I'm willing to bet on it a little bit. It's again, this is not advice, it's just my opinion and what I'm doing. Marine, okay. Yeah, Laura Humongous. Yeah, I'm not a crook. Richard Nixon. Right. Tricky Dicky. I haven't been following uranium stocks, Dan Dunn. So I think Comico, is it Comico? I used to hold that years ago. I think Comico is a good one. Or Camico, I'm not sure how you spell it. American expat is back from Russia. Let's see. Dow's up 245, so it's gone up even more. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's amazing. It just keeps going up. I mean, last night after the market closed, it was down 100, and then it started going up. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's great for the people who are holding stocks. I'm not going to chase it, so don't. Dow's up 245, 250 now. So yeah, the all-time high for the Dow was in the beginning in January at 26,616, I think. It's now 26,300, the Dow. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, I mean, the title of the live stream is "The Fed Interest Rates and Q&A." Is the debt the only reason the U.S. economy has picked up in the last quarter, and you have GDP running at 4% per annum, is that the budget deficit, the debt has grown so much, the government is borrowing so much. So of course, government spending is like going through the roof. I saw the other day. Hi, Jane Reynolds. Nice to see you. I saw the other day that the budget deficit hit almost $500 billion, not for the year, but for 1 month. And that's crazy. And that's why I think maybe the stock market is going up as well. But it's crazy. I don't know. Yeah, these markets, as Lord Keynes said once, John Maynard Keynes, even though I'm not a fan of Keynesian economics, one thing he said that it's true is that markets can remain irrational for longer than they can remain solvent. And now, they've pumped so much money into these markets, funny money, and it's crazy. And I think the Fed, even though they've been raising rates for 3 years, they're way behind the curve and it's too late. And I think we could see the destruction of the whole monetary system because they've let it go on for too long. Yeah, the dollar is still strong, but I think all the fiat currencies, it's not looking good. And maybe that's why the U.S. stock market is going up, because Venezuela, a few years ago, the Caracas index was the best performing index in the world during the Weimar hyperinflation. German stocks did well. Then again, I could be wrong, and we could see a collapse. But it's just crazy. Marine stew. With silver gold ratio being so high at the moment, how would one swap any silver for gold when the ratio comes back down? Would you sell back to the place where you bought? That's usually what you would do, yeah, or sell it back to a place that has the best bid. It might not be the place that you bought it from. Always shop around. Daryl, yeah, I think the yield curve is, uh, you know, it usually steepens once the Fed stops raising rates. So it might invert very soon. But then when they stop raising rates, uh, I think it will steepen again, and the stock market and everything else will just, correct big time. And that's the historical, precedent. Casual treat. Do you trust Jim Rogers' views? I think he's quite honest about things. Yeah, he does know. He does admit the dollar is like, just fiat. I do trust it. I listen to what he says, but he doesn't always get everything right, and no one ever gets everything right. We can just try to try to assess the risks and the probabilities, and we will always, people will always lose money in the markets. It's just trying to see, yeah, assess the probabilities and try to make some money. That's what. And Jim Rogers is not any different, but I think he makes more sense. He's not like a mainstream economist. He's got a contrarian view, so I do listen to him. Do you bake your own bread? My wife does sometimes. So, yeah, but not regularly. But she does bake the bread. It's really nice, the fresh bread like that. Marine Stew, thank you for the super chat. Uh, yeah, thank you. And he says, keep up the great content. Thank you, Stu, for the donation. Force majeure, if gold goes down to 1,000, could that affect the price of gold in the UK? Well, it all depends on the on the on cable, on the rate, the exchange rate between the pound and the dollar. If the pound dropped to 1 to 1, that would mean that the price of gold would be at £1,000. So it all depends on the exchange rate of the pound and the dollar. So if we stay where we are, I think the pound is around 131, and gold went down, and that didn't move. Of course, yeah, gold would go down in pounds as well. So where are we right now? Yeah, stock market Dow is up 0.9%, S&P up 0.7%. Gold and silver are not doing much. They're down slightly on the day. The currencies, the pound is down 0.15%, and so is the euro. The dollar is up 0.5% against the yen. Crude oil is down 0.1%. What about the emerging and the 10-year yield? Let's have a look at the 10-year yield right now. We are at 304. So yeah, I mean, it's been between 303, 304 for the last 5-6 hours. It popped up earlier in the day in London, and they've it looks like they've tried to keep it at this level. One thing I would say, though, is that I remember when I was working in the markets, when I started out in the late 80s, early 90s, if the stock market was doing what it's doing now, interest rates, interest rates and the bond would be going up sharply, and the bond market would be dropping sharply, because people always expected the central banks to come in and rein in, the credit. Uh, yeah, there was always this relationship up until I would say 2002, 2003 or four. You know, if you had a very strong stock market, bond prices would go down. But you know, recently, you know, it's like interest rates stay relatively low, even though the Dow has gone, you know, from 16,000 last 2 years ago to 26,000 now. Interest rates haven't really gone up that much. It's just like if you told someone, you know, 25 years ago that the Dow would be at 26,000 and the Fed funds rate would be at 2%, they'd think you're crazy. They'd say, oh, it needs to be more like 6 or 7. That's why I think, you know what, the Fed is way behind the curve, even though they have raised the rates since December 2015. KVJ, why do markets remember old support resistance level going back decades, even though inflation alters the real price downwards constantly? It's just the way it is. You know, the traders, investors, they all remembered. They not all of them. A lot of them remember those levels, and they're also constantly looking at charts. It just does. It's just the way it is. Uh, So that's why, you know, the all-time high in the Dow was recently, just in January. So that's why, you know, when it gets near there, a lot of the traders are going to be watching it, because if it breaks that level, they're just going to jump in and try to trade, you know, a momentum trade. They buy it and then hope everyone else comes in, drives it up, and then they'll sell it. Lix59, thank you for the super chat donation. Here's for a beer on the 19th hole. Thank you. Shoda, do you think the premium in purchasing silver is too high? In the UK, it is. I haven't bought any recently, but I've heard that with the VAT, you're almost paying like 70% premium. I'm not sure about the States. I think I haven't followed the premium in the States, but I heard, you know, that the US Mint is not buying any silver to mint the silver. So yeah, it looks like the premiums are high in the States. Lord Humongous, I refinanced my house, put out some equity. Now I'm going to sell it. Well, you know, I did that 3.5 years ago. I sold my old house. I didn't have a very big mortgage. I paid that off, bought a house slightly smaller, and that's what I did, you know. And so I've got no mortgage debt now, or any other kind of debt for that matter. Good luck, Lord Humongous. Hope you do a good deal. Lisa Murphy, the Fed has ruined the country and owns us all, Trump included. I agree. All the central banks. I mean, the fiat money system is just, that's the other thing I was thinking about. The fiat money system is like, because money really just is a representation of the wealth that you create, of your labor, your efforts. You know, if you provide a service, if you make a product, if you grow a crop, and you have an excess of that, you know, of that, something that you can store that wealth, which is basically your energy. And what the fiat money does, it sucks the energy out of everyone, and it's parasitical, and it's just an unfair system. And I just hope more and more people become aware of it, and that's why I do these videos. That's why I've got the maneco64 store. If you look in the description of my videos. There's a link. You can buy End the Fed t-shirts, End the Fed mugs. You can buy Billy mugs to help support, the channel, so I can keep growing the channel, making more videos, and hopefully, making more and more people aware of this system, parasitical system. Uh, Many people, don't understand what money is. I didn't understand it up until 2001 and 2, and I worked in the system, for 14 years before I started looking into it. So you can imagine how someone, a carpenter somewhere, or a teacher, or a nurse, they don't, they just want to get paid, but they don't realize that the money they're getting paid in is actually ripping them off. Am I saying that sound money or free market money, gold and silver, is perfect? No, but it's a lot fairer. It's not something that can be created, out of thin air, as I always say. Lord Humongous, Mary, can you sell coins online in the UK to Americans? Yeah, if I put it on eBay, you can buy it from me on eBay. You probably have to you probably have to I'll have to declare it for US customs, so you're gonna have to pay a bit extra customs. Or I could just say it's a gift as well. Yeah, and I could post it and say it's a gift, but I could get in trouble for that. But yeah, you can technically buy stuff from anyone on eBay, even coins. I've bought coins from silver coins from the States before. T. Hambone, if Trump really wanted to end the Fed, he would put out numerous press releases and get support behind him. Yeah, I think he would be dead by now already if he'd try to, go against the Fed. Unfortunately, hopefully the Fed will destroy itself on its own. But who knows? Some people think, Trump is doing things and that his end goal is for that. But I haven't seen any indication to that yet. If he had hired Ron Paul as the Treasury Secretary of the Treasury, then I would be very encouraged. But he hired a guy from Goldman Sachs. Billy just sneezed. So, what about for those of you who've just come on? I was speaking about interest rates and the Fed, and the fact that every time the Fed goes on a rate rising cycle, uh, usually takes 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, and there's always a crisis or a recession. And that's been the case since the mid 70s. And right now, the Fed has been raising rates since December 2015. So it's almost 3 years. So I think we're very close to some kind of accident. And this time, the Fed left interest rates almost at zero for about 7 years, which is unheard of. And besides doing that, they bought, I guess, almost 4 trillion of toxic assets for their balance sheet. So they injected 4 trillion of funny money out of thin air into the economy. So even though they have raised rates, I think they started too late, and there will be hell to pay, not just for the whole world, because the Fed is the major central bank of the world, and the dollar is still the reserve currency. News for all. Don't worry, it's all happening behind the scenes. Soon everyone will soon everything will come out in public. So are you behind the scenes on News for All? It would be nice to have someone from the inside. Um, hope we'll see. News for All a little bit. That's good. I mean, one other guy I like listening to is David Janda, because I think he was in he went to Washington in 1988, I think, to do work for the Reagan administration. So he knows a lot of people there. So yeah, Gresham's law: bad money drives out good money. That's right. That's a natural monetary phenomenon. You know, that's why right now we've got bad money, which is the fiat money, and we hold on to our gold and silver because we know that that gold and silver will always have value while the fiat money goes to zero. That's Gresham's law. Ralph Moreno, I think a black swan event could be unforeseen damage consequences from Hurricane Florence. Yeah, and it could be due to it could be related to insurance, reinsurance, and insurance companies are very important in the financial system. Who knows? Or it could be something else. Lord Humongous says Janda is a good guy in the sea of filth. Yeah, but he's from the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I think that's funny when he says that. Mnuchin is part of the big club. Yeah, I just read that I forgot his first name. Is it Steve Mnuchin? I'm not sure. He's just put up his apartment in Manhattan for sale for $33 million. He bought it years ago for 11, and he's using his aunt as the broker, the real estate broker. He's keeping it in the family. So let's have a look at the what's the 10-year yield 304, not moving much. The Dow now is coming back off coming off a little bit from the highs. I think it got up to 26,320. So it was up about 260 points. Now it's up 225 points. So still doing very well. Gold is 1197.50, silver 1414. Yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is that the financial markets right now, uh, they're very complacent. Uh, you know, people are complacent. People think this is just going to keep going forever. You know, elevated asset prices, relatively low interest rates. So yeah, things are eerily calm. And I think Goldman Sachs came up with an article today. There's something about 239 reasons for volatility to pick up a lot. And they talk about the seasonality of financial crisis, you know, in the fall and also the upcoming elections. But for the last few years, you know, people have always predicted some kind of, you know, financial calamity at this time of the year. But we'll have to see, of course. KV, did you see the article Zero Hedge? Chinese gold panda coins now trading on Shanghai. Oh yeah, they're trading on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Yeah, that's interesting because on the COMEX, you can't really trade. I'm not sure if you can trade coins. They just take big bars. So that's quite interesting that they're trading the Chinese gold panda coins there. Uh, David Foner. Is it Foner? Sorry if I mispronounced it. I usually don't cover religion, but let's see. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. New Jerusalem. A portion of the gospel is the market truths and money management truths. I agree. I mean, and I think Jesus, the only time he lost his cool and actually got very angry was with the money changers in the temple. I might be wrong, but I think that's, uh, that's just goes to show you, you know, this kind of shenanigans have been going on forever. Fiat money and money is a great utility to mankind, I think, but it needs to be used. How can I say, in a sound and honest way? Because if we corrupt money, it creates problems, big problems, because money is the lifeblood of the economy. Without money, we can't have specialization and indirect exchange. News for all, yeah, he didn't like the money changers. He needs to come back and throw them out once more. Yeah, well, we've been waiting for him for a long time. We have been, I guess. David Foner, I've been watching, enjoying your vids. Thanks. Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for the support, David. T. Hambone, Federal Reserve has committed treason. Bravo, great dream. Let's make it happen. Yeah, can you imagine what Andrew Jackson must be doing in his grave right now, seeing the his picture on the dollar bill. Is it the $20 bill? Yeah, he must be like I'm not sure, is it $10 or $20 bill, but I'm not sure he'd be too amused to have his picture on a Federal Reserve note. Oh yeah, $20 bill. That's what I thought. Andrew Jackson. Yeah, old Hickory. I mean, he was. Someone tried to assassinate him. I think they tried to shoot him twice, and the pistol, fortunately, was defective. And that was around the time that he wanted to. He was, going to not. How can I say, renew the charter for the Second Bank of the United States. So from 1837 to 1913, the U.S. didn't have a central bank, and the economy did really well. I know you had a civil war there, but it was a great period of growth and development for the U.S. without a central bank. John Jones, what do you think of Trump's tariffs? Uh, I think without a trade being balanced, you can't have like a new currency. If some people think he's going to institute a gold-backed dollar, you need to run a balanced trade. And I think, the globalists, they've hollowed out the United States for 30 years by shifting all the production abroad. And I think that's all he's trying to do. He's trying to bring back a bit more jobs to the States. Don't see anything wrong about it. It's going to make some products more expensive, but the flip side of that is that it's going to create more jobs in the States as well. So what would you rather have? No job and buy a Big Mac for, I don't know how much the Big Mac is. Let's say it's $5. You've got no job and you can buy a Big Mac for $5. And then you have a job, but your Big Mac is $6. I think I'd rather have a job and buy the more expensive Big Mac than have no job. So I think that's how I see the tariffs. Because but the only reason why America, and this is what has allowed America also to how can I say, have the cheap goods, is that they've been able to export all these dollars abroad. But now that they're coming back, it's going to create inflation, but it will create jobs, hopefully. Hi, Chris Weiner. Nice to see you here. Lisa Murphy, no jobs. Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly buy this, you know, what we hear a lot now, that unemployment is the best ever. It might be statistically, but there's still 96 million people out of the workforce in the US. Shoda, can you hear the big war drums beating in Syria? Yeah, I've noticed in the last few weeks, they're talking a lot, especially in the US and UK, about the fact that there could be a gas attack by the Syrian government, which makes no sense whatsoever, because that would only hurt them, and they're doing well against the insurgents in Syria. So yeah, it looks like it's beating. Hopefully, it won't result into war. The drums of the drums. Lisa Murphy listened to David Stockman on Trump's tariffs. Franklin $100 bill. Do you know this story about Benjamin Franklin? I think prior to the American Revolution, a lot of the colonies were printing. I think it was Massachusetts. They were printing their own script, and it was regulated to the amount of goods and services in the economy. So there was no inflation, and things were really, the economy in the colonies were doing well. And I think he went to London. He was in London, and someone asked him, how come, the Massachusetts colony is doing so well? And he said, well, it's because we print our own money, our own script. And it was after that that they actually passed an act that prohibited that, and it eventually led to the Revolutionary War. So that's the one interesting point about Benjamin Franklin. David Morsilli, do you think the central bank IMF system was always designed to collapse, to reset global financial system, to wipe out massive wealth of the haves? I think the central banking system is used to pump and dump, and actually wipe out the debt, the wealth of the public. So hope, it would be poetic justice, though, if the whole thing imploded and even the haves lost everything. That would be nice, but I'm sure there will be many of the haves, the very top haves, that will do very well from it. But if anything, I agree with you, though. Not the very top, the people that have done well but are not aware of it, I think they will get hurt massively. And I guess the general public, down the bottom, it won't make too much difference for them, because right now already they don't have much. So it could be an opportunity for the public. I hope that helps. Jim Rickards, yeah, I like listening to Jim Rickards. He's quite clear, and he explains it well. I have a few of his books. I haven't listened to him recently that much. Chris Warren, what is the best way to send you a tip? It would be in gold or silver, though. Sorry, I do not have crypto nor any bank accounts. Well, I guess if you give me your email, I could give you my address here, and you could post it. You could send it, registered. I guess that would be the only way, Chris. If you give me your email, and I can send you an email with my address, so you don't have any electronic, I do not have crypto or bank accounts. Yeah, that would be the best way to do it. If you could send me your email. Let me get your, I've got your email. I'll copy and paste it. I'm writing it down right now. Hi, Chris. I just sent you the email with my address. No, Chris has been around. I don't think he's a scam. Billy Treats. Thank you, Lord Humongous, for the super chat donation. Billy, he loves his treats. I have to treat his eyes every day, and I always give him a treat for that. Oh, no, no problem, Chris. No problem. Well, you got to trust people, and I don't know. Chris has been on the super chats a lot of times. So let's see, what time is it? We still got 40 minutes. Lord Humongous will send me a picture of his pit bull, Aussie. So the Dow is up 216 right now. Gold 1197.35, so not doing much. 10-year yield 304. These nuts. Oh, hi, these nuts. Oh, you've got 305 now on the 10-year yield. My price is not. Yeah, let's see. Let me refresh it here. Yeah, 305. So yeah, that's quite a big move for the day. It's up 6 basis points. It's quite a lot, 6 basis points. We'll have to see what happens. Lisa Murphy says to Chris Wynant, how do you not have a credit card of any kind? That's amazing. I applaud that. I have a credit card, and I haven't used it. I had to use it a few months ago because they said, "Oh, you haven't used it for 18 months, and if you don't use it, you're going to lose it." The only reason I keep it sometimes is that if I were to travel and I needed to rent a car or something, they actually usually like to have a credit card, but I don't really spend or buy anything on credit. I just have it for the convenience. Yeah, just like Chris. There's a lot of people, not that many, but there are some people here in the UK that don't have bank accounts. And how do I know that? Well, when I had my business a few years ago, I had the pawn shop. I had a few people that came in and they didn't have bank accounts. So they had to, if they were going to do something that required ID, they would bring like their birth certificates. That's the only thing they had. They didn't have passports nor bank accounts. Hi, Renee. Nice to see you. Yeah, Dax says the unbanked. Robert Cowan says, I use a credit card for almost everything because I get a 2% rebate in cash. The other thing that I have is a Wirex card, is for spending cryptocurrencies. And I actually get, every time I spend with that Wirex card, it doesn't have to be, you don't spend the cryptocurrencies. Let's say you need 50 pounds to spend. You sell the 50 pounds worth of cryptocurrencies in your app, you put it in the card. But then if I use the Wirex card, I get Satoshi rewards. So I like that, the fact that you use the Wirex card, they actually pay you off. They give you a Bitcoin rebate. Yeah, Robert Cowan says he pays it off for every month. Yeah, and I think for example, I think my credit card, they charge me on the 20th or 21st of the month. So if you are going to spend on your credit card and you're going to pay it off at the end of the month when they charge you, you better make sure you do it right after spend it on the 22nd for me. Then I have almost another month to pay it off. Kevin Johnson, do you plan for civil unrest when transition takes place? It's possible, but I think it won't be, at least here in the UK or London, it will probably be in certain areas. I don't think it, hopefully, but it's something that is possible. In the US, it could be worse. I think you look at Black Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, people almost riot to go in those shops. So can you imagine if you do have a crisis, how bad it will be? Uh, Robert Cowan, can you explain how silver price is suppressed without the suppressor losing money? I would say it's the futures market, the derivatives market, and the only reason they can do that is that they're able to lure speculators and people in that actually also get greedy uh, and buy a lot of buy the silver with the paper silver with leverage, and that allows the commercials or the banks to sucker them in, and then they smack it down and it's all a game. But it keeps the sentiment depressed, and that's how they do it. It's a functioning paper market. That's how they do it, and they're masters of controlling that market. But if the best thing Donald Trump could do, I think, would be to come out with an executive order and basically ban futures trading in by the banks in silver and gold. If he did that, the the price of physical gold and silver would go through the roof. So that's how they do it, through the derivatives market. And but that's why I don't, if you're a real proponent of sound money, if you're a stacker, that's why I never recommend you that you play the game, because you're actually, how can I say, helping these guys succeed in suppressing the price, because you've been using that system to try to and they're gonna like sucker you in, and they know how to manipulate the markets. They've been doing it for over 100 years. Yeah, that's right, Lord Humongous. Buy the physical silver. Aaron Levy, I'm a millennial and I bought my house when I was 23. I'm now 35 and it's almost paid off. Well, that's good. Other millennials are drowning in student debt and won't even buy one. Well, that's good that you've been able to do that. Um, Not every young person is able to do that. So that's really good. Thanks, Mario. Says Robert, I have more than 2 times my weight in silver. There's an interesting story about the king of Egypt. Uh, I forgot his name. I think he was, and the law in Egypt was that every year he had to get his weight in gold paid to him by the public, I guess. And he was not surprisingly, he was a really big and fat guy, the king of Egypt. He liked his gold, and I think he was one of the guys who bought the 1933 double eagles that was worth millions. I don't know if you guys remember the book Illegal Tender. That was the king of Egypt. Yes, Chris, that's right. And the in London and in New York there's a huge over-the-counters paper market, uh, part of the LBMA, and gold is traded like foreign exchange. Yeah, King Farouk, that's right. Uh, Fat bastard he was. Maybe the managing director of the BIS, the Mexican guy Karsten. Have you seen the? I think you've seen my videos about the BIS. He's really big as well. Maybe he gets paid in his weight in gold every year as well. And maybe that's why Augustin Karstens. That's right. Maybe that's why they manipulate gold down for him. Samantha Jane, is it true that the shorts are coming to an end? Everyone's starting to go long. Well, yeah, it's the first time I think since 2001 that the commercials are long gold, and it's the first time in almost ever, or in 24 years, that the commercials are actually long silver. That's right, and usually the commercials are the smart money. Eric, how do we know the commercials are actually net long on silver and don't have a bigger short position open somewhere else that isn't reported? That's true. On COMEX, we know that they're long. They could be short uh, in London through the LBMA, but on COMEX, they haven't been long since, 24 years. But of course, in an OTC market, you don't know. On the COMEX because it's an exchange, public exchange, and it has to be reported to the CFTC, and the CFTC publishes the data uh, every week to the public. Robert, I'm not trying to say that you're putting a lot of weight on so you can buy a lot of silver, by the way. So I'm gonna do another few questions, and I'm gonna call it a night. It's 8:30 here. It's getting dark earlier now, unfortunately, with the fall coming or autumn. Eric says, do you have any other resources for tracking what positions large institutions, smart money have open? Well, the futures market basically is the only one that you can track because they're publicly traded. They're on exchanges, but over the counter, it's traded between the banks. So there isn't really any other way. If you go COT CFTC, Commitment of Traders Report, CFTC. You'll find that if you Google that. I guess the other way to follow derivatives is the Office of the Controller of the Currency. They follow the derivatives a bit. These nuts live in excuse me. She loves it when the sun goes down at 6 p.m. because she's in South Florida. Yeah, the Sunshine State. You're welcome, Eric. Yes, I have seen the Illuminati Silver Channel. Uh, they know what they're talking about, in my opinion. The only thing I don't like about that channel is that I don't see a face, and they don't really tell you who they are. Uh, I'm not really too keen on that. You know, I'm open. I tell you who I am, and I'm here in front of you. But I think they were former bankers, you know, in the city of London. Capitalism. What do you think about conspiracy theories on gold dealers doing what the U.S. did not? The U. The U.S. did on the gold standard. Oh, yeah, of course they overprinted in relation to gold. That's why Nixon had to close the gold window. It's not a conspiracy. If Nixon hadn't overprinted, or Lyndon Johnson before him, they wouldn't have had to close the gold window, because basically, you know, for every $35 of Federal Reserve notes, you had to have an ounce of gold. But the U.S. didn't have that anymore. They ran huge trade deficits with Europe, and then when the French and the English came, you know, to the Federal Reserve or the Treasury and said, "We want our gold," you know, they gave them the Federal Reserve notes. They closed the window because they were going to run out of gold. It's not a conspiracy. Thanks, Dax. Yeah, overtime today. Private dealers, how can they do that? Unless you don't take delivery, you can't do that, or unless they sell you fake gold. All right. I will call it a day now, or a night. Thank you for all the participation and everyone that showed up. Thank you for the donations on Super Chat. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good rest of the day. Have a good night. Have a good morning, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.